Part 3. The Secret That Tests Everything. Vincent, the ballroom glittered like a jewel box, crystal chandeliers casting dancing shadows across marble floors. Olivia stood at the entrance, her hand resting lightly on Vincent's arm, feeling completely out of her element. The dress he had chosen for her was stunning, a deep emerald silk that hugged her curves before flowing to the floor, but she felt like an imposter playing dress-up in someone else's life. "Relax," Vincent murmured, his breath warm against her ear. "You look beautiful. Just follow my lead." Before she could respond, a wave of people descended upon them. Business associates, socialites, journalists with their cameras flashing. Vincent transformed before her eyes, his usual cold demeanor melting into charm and warmth. His hand moved to the small of her back, a gesture both possessive and protective. "Everyone, I would like you to meet my wife, Olivia Sterling." The name sent a jolt through her. She had signed the papers that morning in a sterile office, but hearing it spoken aloud made it feel suddenly, terrifyingly real. "Mrs. Sterling, how did you two meet?" A woman in diamonds leaned forward eagerly. Olivia opened her mouth, panic fluttering in her chest, but Vincent squeezed her waist gently. "Olivia quite literally ran into me at an art gallery. She was so absorbed in a painting that she walked straight backwards into my chest. I knew right then she was someone special." The lie came so smoothly that Olivia almost believed it herself. She looked up at Vincent, and the way he was gazing down at her, eyes soft with affection, made her heart skip. He was good at this. Too good. "It was one of those moments," Olivia added, finding her voice, "when you realize the universe has a sense of humor." Laughter rippled through the group, and Vincent's eyes crinkled with what looked like genuine amusement. As the evening wore on, they moved through the crowd seamlessly. Vincent introduced her to tech moguls and venture capitalists, his hand never leaving her back. And when they danced, his arms around her waist, she found herself forgetting that this was all pretend. "You are doing well," he said, as they swayed to the music. "Natural actress." "I could say the same about you." Olivia met his gaze. "That story about the art gallery almost had me convinced." The best lies contain a kernel of truth. His expression grew distant. "I did meet someone at a gallery once." "Long time ago." Olivia wanted to ask more, but his walls had already gone back up. Instead, she rested her head against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. Just for tonight, she told herself. Just for this moment, she could pretend this was real. Cracks in the foundation. The next 2 weeks fell into an unexpected rhythm. Vincent left early for work most mornings, but he started joining Olivia for coffee before he left. They did not talk much, just shared the quiet morning hours over the newspaper and their laptops. It was companionable in a way Olivia had not anticipated. One evening, she returned from a client meeting to find Vincent in the kitchen, staring helplessly at a pot of boiling water. "What are you doing?" she asked, amusement coloring her voice. "Attempting to make pasta." He gestured at the disaster zone surrounding him. "My housekeeper is sick and I realized I have no idea how to feed myself." Olivia bit back a laugh. "The billionaire cannot cook." "How shocking. Mock me all you want. But unless you want me to order takeout for the 3rd night in a row, I suggest you help." She rolled up her sleeves, moving beside him at the stove. "Move over. Let me show you how normal people survive." As she worked, Vincent watched with surprising interest. She talked him through each step, and he actually listened, asking questions and taking mental notes. When she accidentally splashed sauce on her shirt, he handed her a towel without comment. When she reached for the salt on the high shelf, he grabbed it for her, his body close enough that she could feel his warmth. "Where did you learn to cook?" Vincent asked as they sat down to eat. Olivia hesitated. This was dangerous territory, edging toward the personal questions they had agreed to avoid. But something about the domestic intimacy of the moment made her want to answer honestly. "My mother taught me before she passed away. After that, it was just me and—" She stopped herself, catching the words before they spilled out. Vincent's eyes sharpened. "You and who?" "Nothing. Just me." She took a bite of pasta, avoiding his gaze. He did not push, but she could feel his curiosity like a physical presence. They ate in silence, but it was no longer the comfortable quiet they had shared before. Now there was a question hanging between them, unspoken but impossible to ignore. The business crisis at 2 in the morning, Olivia woke to the sound of raised voices. She threw on a robe and followed the noise to Vincent's office, where he was on a video call, his face tight with fury. "I do not care what the board says, Richard. We are not selling to Helix Corp. They will gut the company and fire half our staff." Vincent's voice was ice. "Find another solution." Olivia started to back away, but Vincent noticed her. He held up a finger, asking her to wait, then ended the call with a curt goodbye. "I am sorry," she said. "I heard shouting. I wanted to make sure everything was okay." Vincent rubbed his temples, exhaustion written across his features. A hostile takeover attempt. "Nothing I have not handled before. Can I help?" The offer surprised them both. "Unless you have experience in corporate warfare, I doubt it." But his tone lacked its usual sharp edge. Olivia walked into the office, settling into the chair across from his desk. "Tell me about it." "Sometimes talking through a problem helps." Vincent looked at her for a long moment, as if weighing whether to trust her. Finally, he sighed. "Helix Corp wants to acquire Sterling Technologies. They are offering the board an obscene amount of money, and several members are wavering. If I do not secure my inheritance in time, I will not have enough shares to block the sale. What happens if they succeed? Thousands of people lose their jobs. Everything my father built gets dismantled and sold for parts." His hands clenched into fists. "I cannot let that happen." Olivia studied him, seeing past the billionaire facade to the man beneath. He was not just fighting for money or power. He was fighting to protect something his father had entrusted to him, to honor a legacy even while resenting the conditions that came with it. "What if you went public?" she suggested. "Not about the marriage clause, but about your vision for the company. People connect with stories, with passion. Show them why Sterling Technologies matters beyond profit margins." Vincent's eyes lit up with interest. "A press conference. Frame the narrative before Helix can." "Exactly. And I could help with the visual presentation. Make it personal, authentic." She leaned forward, ideas flowing. "Show them the employees, the innovations, the real human impact of your work." For the next 3 hours, they worked side by side, building a strategy. Olivia sketched designs while Vincent drafted talking points. They argued over details, laughed at bad ideas, and slowly built something that felt right. As dawn broke over the city, they finally sat back, exhausted but satisfied. "Thank you," Vincent said quietly. "You did not have to do this. We are partners, remember? Even if it is just on paper." But as she said it, Olivia wondered if that was still true. The moment, everything changed. The press conference was a triumph. Vincent's passionate defense of Sterling Technologies went viral, and public opinion turned sharply against Helix Corp's takeover attempt. That evening, Vincent came home with champagne and an actual smile on his face. "We did it," he said, pouring them each a glass. The board voted to reject Helix's offer. They toasted to victory, standing in the middle of his massive living room. But instead of retreating to separate corners as they usually did, they found themselves talking, really talking. Vincent told her about learning to code as a teenager, about the first app he ever built. Olivia shared stories about growing up, carefully editing out the parts she could not reveal. "Why design?" Vincent asked. "What draws you to it?" Olivia considered the question, swirling her champagne. "I love the idea that you can take something ordinary and make it beautiful. That you can communicate complex emotions through simple images. It feels like magic sometimes. You are very talented. I have seen your work on your laptop." He caught her surprised look. "I noticed things, apparently." She felt heat rise to her cheeks. "You are not what I expected, you know. When I agreed to this arrangement, I thought you would be this cold, calculating businessman with no heart." Disappointed? There was an edge of vulnerability in his voice that she had never heard before. "No. The opposite, actually." "That is the problem." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Vincent set down his glass, moving closer to her. "Olivia, I need to tell you something." Her heart hammered in her chest. "What?" This arrangement, this marriage, it is getting harder to remember that it is not real." His voice was low, rough. "When I am with you, when we talk like this, I forget that there is an expiration date." Olivia's breath caught. She should step back, remind him of their agreement, protect them both from this dangerous territory. But she could not make herself move. "Vincent, we agreed. I know what we agreed." He reached out, his fingers gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "But I am starting to think I made a terrible mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "Believing I could spend a year with you and not want more." His thumb traced her jawline, sending shivers down her spine. "Thinking I could look at you every day and not fall." The confession shattered something inside her. All the walls she had built, all the reminders that this was temporary, came crashing down, because she felt it too, this terrifying, exhilarating pull toward him. "We should not do this," she whispered, even as she leaned into his touch. "Probably not." His other hand came up to cup her face, his eyes searching hers. "Tell me to stop, Olivia. Tell me you do not feel this too." But she could not, because it would be a lie. Instead, she closed the distance between them, her lips meeting his in a kiss that felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff at the same time. Vincent's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her close, and for a perfect, impossible moment, nothing else mattered. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, reality came flooding back. Olivia stepped away, her hand flying to her lips. "I cannot do this," she said, panic rising in her chest. "You do not understand. There are things about me, reasons why this can never work." "Then tell me." Vincent's voice was pleading. "Whatever it is, we can figure it out together." But Olivia was already backing toward the hallway, tears threatening to spill. "I am sorry. I should not have let this happen. We need to stick to the arrangement. Nothing more." She fled to her room, leaving Vincent standing alone in the living room, champagne forgotten and confusion written across his face. Inside her locked bedroom, Olivia pulled out her phone with shaking hands. 3 missed calls from the hospital. Her secret, the reason she had agreed to this marriage, the truth she had been hiding, it was all threatening to unravel. And if Vincent discovered what she had been concealing, it would not just end their arrangement. It would destroy any chance they might have had at something real. As she listened to the voicemail from her sister's doctor, Olivia realized the worst possible thing had happened. She had broken the cardinal rule of their agreement. She had fallen in love with her temporary husband. And now everything was about to fall apart. Vincent did not sleep that night. He sat in his office, replaying the kiss over and over in his mind, analyzing every moment like it was a business deal gone wrong. Except this was not business anymore, and that terrified him more than any corporate takeover ever could. He had spent 7 years building walls around himself after his father's death. After watching the vultures circle the company, after learning that trust was a luxury he could not afford. Yet somehow, in just a few weeks, Olivia had slipped through every defense he had constructed. The way she hummed while cooking breakfast. The quiet intelligence in her eyes when they discussed his business strategies. The fierce protectiveness in her voice when she thought he was pushing himself too hard. These small moments had accumulated into something he could no longer ignore. But she was hiding something. He had known it from the beginning, had told himself it did not matter as long as she fulfilled her part of the contract. Now everything had changed. If they were going to have any chance at making this real, he needed to know the truth. As dawn broke, Vincent made a decision. He picked up his phone and called his head of security. "Thomas, I need you to run a background check, complete and thorough. I want to know everything." He gave him Olivia's name, then ended the call, guilt already gnawing at his conscience. This was a betrayal of her privacy, of the trust they had been building. But he had learned long ago that ignorance was more dangerous than uncomfortable truths. 3 hours later, Thomas called back. "Mr. Sterling, you need to see this in person." The truth revealed. The file was thick, filled with medical records, financial statements, and photographs. Vincent spread the documents across his desk, his hands trembling slightly as he began to read. With each page, the picture became clearer and more heartbreaking. Olivia had a younger sister, Sophie, age 16. Their parents had died in a car accident 4 years ago, leaving Olivia as sole guardian. Sophie had been diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia 2 years later. The medical bills were staggering, running into hundreds of thousands of dollars. Insurance covered only a fraction. Vincent found records of Olivia working 3 jobs simultaneously: a full-time position at a design firm, freelance work in the evenings, and weekend shifts at a coffee shop. He saw the eviction notices, the maxed-out credit cards, the desperate loan applications that had been denied. She had sold everything of value, including her mother's jewelry and her father's car. Then he found the hospital bills from the past month. Sophie's condition had worsened. She needed an experimental treatment that cost exactly $10 million, the same amount Vincent was paying Olivia for their arrangement. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Olivia had not agreed to this marriage for greed or ambition. She had done it to save her sister's life. Every morning she smiled at breakfast. Every evening she pretended everything was fine. She was carrying this crushing weight alone. Vincent's hands clenched around the papers. She had been protecting Sophie, keeping her hidden from him not out of deception, but out of love. And he had just violated her privacy in the worst possible way. His phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. "Need to visit a friend. We'll be back late." He knew immediately where she was going. Vincent grabbed his coat and headed for the door. Some truths could not wait. At the hospital, Vincent found her in the pediatric oncology ward, sitting beside a hospital bed where a thin teenage girl with a scarf wrapped around her head was sleeping. Olivia held the girl's hand gently, her eyes red from crying. She looked up when she heard footsteps, and her face went pale when she saw him. "Vincent!" She stood quickly, her voice barely a whisper. "What are you doing here?" "I know everything," he said quietly, stepping into the room. "Sophie, the leukemia, the medical bills. I know why you agreed to marry me." Olivia's face crumbled. "You had me investigated?" "Yes." He did not offer excuses or justifications. "And I am sorry. But I needed to understand why you ran last night, why you looked so terrified when things between us became real. You had no right." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "This is my life, my sister. I was handling it. By working yourself to death? By agreeing to a fake marriage with a stranger?" Vincent moved closer, his voice gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. "Olivia, you should have told me. Why?" She laughed bitterly. "So you could pity me? So you could use it against me? I learned a long time ago that the only person I can rely on is myself." On the bed, Sophie stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "Liv?" Her voice was weak but curious as she looked at Vincent. "Who is that?" Olivia wiped her tears quickly, forcing a smile. "Sophie, this is Vincent. He is a friend. A friend who made you cry?" Sophie's gaze sharpened despite her illness. "Not a very good friend." Vincent found himself smiling despite the tension. "You are right, I am not. But I am trying to do better." He looked at Olivia. "Can we talk?" "Privately?" Olivia hesitated, then nodded. She kissed Sophie's forehead. "I will be right back, sweetheart. Rest, okay?" They walked to a small waiting area at the end of the hall. Through the window, the city stretched out below them, indifferent to the drama unfolding in this quiet corner of the hospital. "I do not want your pity," Olivia said, her arms wrapped around herself defensively. The arrangement was business. What Sophie needs, what I need, that was never supposed to be part of this. But it is part of this now. Vincent stepped closer. "Because you are part of my life, Olivia. What affects you affects me. That is what happens when you care about someone." She looked up at him, hope and fear warring in her eyes. "Care about me? Vincent, you barely know me. I know that you work until you collapse to save your sister. I know that you make terrible jokes when you are nervous. I know that you bite your lip when you are concentrating on a design. I know that you see the best in people even when they do not deserve it." He took her hands in his. "I know that I have never met anyone as strong, as brave, or as beautiful as you." "Stop." Her voice broke. "Please stop, because if you keep talking like that, I am going to believe you. And when this year is over, when you realize this was all a mistake, it will destroy me. Then let me prove it is not a mistake." Vincent cupped her face in his hands, making her look at him. Sophie's treatment. Let me pay for it. Not as part of our contract, but because I want to help. Because your family is now my family. Olivia shook her head, tears streaming freely now. That is too much. I cannot accept that from you. Why not? Because of pride? Because you think you have to carry everything alone? His thumb brushed away her tears. Olivia, I spent 7 years isolating myself, believing that needing anyone made me weak. You showed me I was wrong. Let me show you the same thing. What if it does not work? She whispered. What if we are just caught up in the moment, and 6 months from now you regret this? Then we will deal with it together. Vincent pressed his forehead against hers. I cannot promise you perfect. I cannot promise I will not mess up or say the wrong thing. But I can promise that I am done pretending this marriage is fake. I want it to be real, Olivia. All of it. For a long moment, she just looked at him, searching his face for any sign of doubt or deception. Then slowly she nodded. Okay, but we do this right. No more secrets between us. No more secrets, he agreed. They returned to Sophie's room together, hand in hand. The teenage girl's eyes widened when she saw their intertwined fingers. Wait a minute, Sophie said, a grin spreading across her pale face. Friend? Liv, is this your mystery husband you would not tell me about? Olivia laughed, the sound shaky but genuine. Yes, Sophie, this is Vincent Sterling. My husband, the billionaire tech guy. Sophie's eyes went huge. Oh my gosh, Liv. You married a billionaire and did not tell me. I am your sister. I had a right to know. Vincent found himself laughing too, the tension of the past hours finally breaking. In her defense, we have been keeping it quiet. Well, the secret is out now. Sophie looked between them, her expression turning serious. Are you good to her, Vincent? Because if you are not, I do not care how sick I am. I will find a way to make your life miserable. Sophie. Olivia's face flushed with embarrassment. But Vincent squeezed Olivia's hand and looked Sophie straight in the eye. I promise you, I will spend every day trying to deserve her. And if I ever fall short, you have my permission to call me out on it. Sophie nodded, satisfied. Good answer. Now, can someone explain to me how this whole romance happened? Because Liv has been super secretive and I want all the details. A new beginning over the next week. Vincent threw himself into arranging Sophie's treatment with the same intensity he applied to his business deals. He consulted with the best oncologists, arranged for transfer to a top-rated cancer center, and made sure Sophie had access to the experimental therapy she needed. Olivia tried to maintain some independence, insisting on continuing her freelance work. But Vincent could see the relief in her eyes every time a medical bill was handled. Every time Sophie smiled because she was not in pain. They moved Sophie into the penthouse, converting one of the guest rooms into a comfortable space where she could recover between treatments. The teenager's presence transformed the once sterile apartment. Her artwork covered the refrigerator, her music echoed through the halls, and her laughter filled spaces that had been silent for too long. One evening, Vincent came home to find Olivia and Sophie in the kitchen, flour dusting every surface as they attempted to bake cookies. The scene was chaotic and messy and absolutely perfect. What happened here? He asked, surveying the disaster with amusement. Sophie wanted to teach me Mom's cookie recipe, Olivia explained, a streak of flour across her cheek. It is not going well. That is because you keep eating the dough, Sophie accused, wielding a wooden spoon like a weapon. Vincent loosened his tie, rolling up his sleeves. Let me help. I have been practicing since you taught me to make pasta. They spent the next hour working together, and for the first time since his father's death, Vincent felt like he was part of a family. Not the cold, formal dinners of his childhood, but something warm and real and beautifully imperfect. Later, after Sophie had fallen asleep on the couch during a movie, Vincent and Olivia stood on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. Thank you, Olivia said softly, not just for Sophie, but for everything. For making this feel like home. Vincent pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her waist. I should be thanking you. I spent so long thinking success meant being alone at the top. You showed me that the view is better when someone is standing beside you. She turned in his arms, her eyes shining. So what happens now? We still have 8 months left on our contract. I say we tear up the contract. Vincent kissed her forehead. And write a new one. No expiration date, no conditions. Just a real marriage built on honesty and trust? And love? Olivia asked hopefully. Especially love. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. I love you, Olivia Hart Sterling. I love your strength, your compassion, your terrible sense of humor. I love the way you see the world. And I love the way you make me want to be better. I love you too, she whispered against his lips. Even though you are bossy and stubborn and completely impossible sometimes. Only sometimes. He raised an eyebrow. She laughed, and the sound was everything Vincent had never known he needed. They stood there, wrapped in each other's arms as the city sparkled below them. The arranged marriage that was supposed to be temporary, the business deal that should have remained cold and transactional, had become something neither of them expected. It had become real. It had become home. It had become love. 6 months later, the coffee shop where they had first met was exactly as Vincent remembered it. He had arranged to buy out the entire place for the afternoon, much to the owner's delight and confusion. Sophie sat at their original table, now healthy and in remission, her hair growing back in soft curls. She was filming everything on her phone, determined to capture every moment for posterity. Olivia walked in, confusion on her face. Vincent, what is this? Why did you drag me across town? He took her hand, leading her to the table where it had all started. This is where we met, where you agreed to a fake marriage with a stranger because you loved your sister more than anything in the world. I remember. She smiled at the memory. I was so nervous. I thought you were going to be awful. I probably was awful. Vincent pulled a small box from his pocket. But you gave me a chance anyway. You saw something in me that I had stopped seeing in myself. Olivia's hands flew to her mouth as he dropped to one knee. Vincent, we are already married. Legally, yes. But I never got to do this right. He opened the box, revealing a stunning ring that caught the light. Olivia, I want to marry you again. Not because of a contract or an inheritance, but because I cannot imagine my life without you. Will you marry me? For real this time? Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on her finger and pulled her into a kiss as Sophie cheered and the coffee shop owner applauded from behind the counter. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying, Vincent held Olivia close. You know what the best part is? He murmured. What? This time there is no secret clause, no hidden condition. Just us, choosing each other every single day. Olivia looked up at him, her eyes full of love and mischief. Well, there is one secret I have been keeping. Vincent's heart skipped. What? She bit her lip, trying to suppress a smile. Sophie and I might have been looking at wedding venues. Real ones this time. With flowers and cake and everyone we love. He threw back his head and laughed, the sound echoing through the small shop. You have been planning our second wedding? Just in case you came to your senses. She grinned. I wanted to be prepared. Vincent pulled her close again, his heart fuller than he ever thought possible. Then let us do it. A real wedding, a real marriage, a real life together. No contracts, no conditions, no secrets. No secrets, Olivia agreed, sealing the promise with a kiss. And as they stood there, surrounded by the people they loved, in the place where their unexpected journey had begun, both of them knew the truth. Sometimes the best love stories are the ones you never see coming. Sometimes an arrangement born of desperation can become the greatest gift of all. Sometimes when you stop protecting your heart and start opening it instead, you find exactly what you have been missing. Their marriage had started as a contract to save a company and a sister's life. But it had become so much more. It had become a partnership, a friendship, and a love story that neither of them would ever trade for anything in the world. The billionaire who thought he needed no one had found everything. And the woman who carried the world on her shoulders had finally learned to share the weight. Together, they had discovered that the secret to happiness was not in perfect plans or careful contracts. It was in choosing love, even when it was messy and complicated and terrifying. Especially then, the end.